The budget custom keyboard scene has been absolutely booming lately, with sub $100 to $150 keyboards popping up left and right, with premium features rivaling boards far above their price range. Only just about a year ago, the market was completely different. That begs the question, how does a budget keyboard from over a year ago stack up today? Today we're going to be looking at the Praxis IM from Keyboard Treehouse, a budget, south-facing hot swap Alice layout keyboard that's in stock, and compare it to some of its competition. Now, I don't have any other boards that we're going to be looking at on hand, but we are going to be comparing them from a feature standpoint, comparing prices of performance and such, to see if this keyboard still stacks up today. But first, a message from our sponsor, PCBWay. PCBWay is your one-stop shop for all your custom project needs, from CNC machining, 3D printing, sheet metal fabrication, injection molding, and of course custom PCB services. They can do it all for you at competitive prices. They're also holding their annual design contest, so if you want to show off your electronic and mechanical design skills and have a chance at winning some cash as well, then check out the link in the description. Thanks to PCBWay for sponsoring, and let's get back to the Praxis. So this is the injection molded version of the original Praxis, which is basically the same thing as this, except made out of aluminum and with a fancy weight on the back. They're both actually backwards compatible with each other, so you can swap them around if you want to, so that's pretty cool, I guess. The case itself is made out of two parts, the top and the bottom case, and both are pretty thin, especially the bottom case, and there's a little bit of bowing that occurs, presumably because of this, but I'm not completely sure why exactly. I've heard that it could be the manufacturing process and just the plastic in general, but I'm not too sure. Over time though, this case has straightened out, and it's never really been an issue when I've used a desk mat, like most people are anyways. Even though the board is a bit hollow and empty, the board comes with absolutely zero foams. I don't think it's a huge issue, but I do think it'd be nice to see some customization options with foam for those who want it. We'll see how this affects the sound of the keyboard later, but for now let's take a look at the PCB. You do have to buy the PCB separately from the case though, either the Valor Rev 2, which is the one I have here, or the Rev 3. There's also a soldered option for those who want that, but I really doubt anyone buying this board is actually going to do a soldered board. But hey, you have the option. The PCB I got here has a bit of underglow RGB, which is pretty nice, but no perky RGB. It also is VIA compatible. One issue though with the hot swap PCB is that you're stuck with one layout, so it's split backspace or nothing. You just gotta get used to it. Though to be fair, it didn't take me too long to get used to it, but you'd have to be wary when buying keycaps just so that you have that backspace. Speaking of layout, this of course is an Alice keyboard, not to be confused with an Arisu, which would keep the arrow keys, and basically be like the 65% version of a normal Alice. This layout is meant to be a bit more ergonomic for your hands by having this inward angle, and when I first got it I thought it would be a pain to get used to, but it wasn't too bad. Now for me personally, I already type with my arms at an angle instead of having them inwards, so this layout doesn't really help me all too much, and to be honest, it sometimes even can be a little uncomfortable for me, but it all depends on how you type. I guess I'm just a little weird for that, because most people I've heard say that this layout is actually very comfortable for them, but I still think something you're gonna have to try out for yourself. Okay, let's talk about the feel. This board is mad stiff because of the top mount design and aluminum plate. This isn't an inherently bad thing though, and I don't mind a stiff typing experience, but I do prefer a little bit of a softer typing experience. This is perfectly fine for me. That's all subjective though. The stiffer mounting style mixed with the thin, hollow case leads to a pretty harsh and loud sound profile, and to be honest, I don't mind it. Take a listen. It's not bad in my opinion, but also not amazing either. Something pretty important about this keyboard is the stabilizers. It comes with its own pair of polycarbonate stabies, which I think is a really nice touch for the price. And the stabies are pretty good. They only need like a tiny bit of 205 grade 0 to sound decent, but they are a bit sluggish in my experience, especially with tactiles. Though I couldn't tell you how the longer keys would fare with ticking and stuff because this board only comes with 2U stabilizers. So yeah, not looking too bad for only $81 for the case and stabilizers, and then an extra $30 to $60 on the PCB depending which one you get. When it came out, I got the whole kit for about $135 plus shipping. So looking for competition for this board is a bit interesting because the Praxis fills a pretty specific niche. There's really not many other keyboards that rival the Praxis in price point while still having this layout and features. While you can find really nice budget aluminum boards these days with fancy weights and designs, none of them to my knowledge are Alice layout and are more popular layouts like 60, 65, or 75%. The only real competitor I found to this board is the Akko ACR Pro Alice Plus. though this board actually came out about the same time as the Praxis, so it seems even with all the recent innovation in budget keyboards, the Alice and Arisu layout haven't really been getting the love they probably deserve. Unless there are some new keyboards that have come out that I'm just not aware of, but to my knowledge, all the other budget boards like these are from sites like Taobao, and the majority of people are not going to be able to buy from places like that, like myself, so I'm not going to be covering any of that. Alright, so the ACR Pro is about $130, so pretty similar to the Praxis there. The ACR is made out of acrylic, while the Praxis is made out of polycarbonate, I believe. I could be wrong there. The ACR Pro is also gasket mounted and comes with a polycarbonate plate instead of an aluminum plate, and it's also an Arisu layout instead of an Alice layout, so you're going to be able to keep your arrow keys. Though the biggest difference between the boards is that the ACR comes completely pre-built, so you're going to get some nice switches, PVT keycaps, plate mount stabilizers, and foams all for that same price. The ACR comes in only solid white or black colors, while the Praxis comes in clear purple or blue colors, though the ACR does come with a fancy weight on the back. The design is pretty out there though, so I'm not sure if that's for everybody. They're both hot swap with fixed layouts, though the ACR has a more standard full backspace instead of split backspace like the Praxis. But the Praxis does have south facing LEDs for the switches instead of north facing, so you won't have any interference with the cherry profile keycaps. So yeah, all things considered, this ain't looking too good for the Praxis when it comes to price to performance. Now I still really like the Praxis, and I definitely think it still has a place in the market for sure, but when it comes to what you get for the price, I think the ACR is definitely the pick for the majority of people. Now, opinion warning, putting the objective review aside, I do think the ACR looks pretty unattractive, and just looks much cheaper than the Praxis in my opinion. It's just too bulky looking for me, and the design overall just doesn't look as clean and premium. And north facing switches are a pretty big deal breaker for me, because I love me my cherry profile keycaps. So assuming you have the budget for extra switches and keycaps after the price of the board, I'd personally go for the Praxis, just because it has more of what I value personally. Though my mind might change if I ever get an ACR myself, because it does have some pretty insane value for the price. And getting a fully built keyboard straight from the box is a pretty big plus for most people. Overall, the Praxis still seems to be a pretty solid board. While most people would probably be a bit happier spending their money on something like the ACR Pro, if the Praxis fits your needs, I still definitely think it's relevant in the market to consider. I'm going to have both keyboards linked in the description if you're interested. Feel free to leave a comment if you have any questions, and hope you enjoyed the video. See ya!